So I'm going to talk about the climate change in Indonesia, more specifically as the global warming and how did global warming affect Indonesia. In this video, I will talk about the vulnerabilities and the opportunities of climate change, the history of industrialization, the history of fossil fuel and deforestation, the lifestyle of different group of citizens, and how did the climate change influence the vulnerable population, the trade-offs, the involvement of Indonesia with UNFCCC and Kyoto, which is an international negotiation group. And lastly, I will suggest some recommendations for the future and the cost and benefit of my recommendations. So first, I'm going to talk about the vulnerabilities. On the ecological side, an increasing in the high greenhouse gas will continue to affect the nature on the nature climate variabilities. So this will leading to more intense uh, weather events like intense rainfalls. Then the intense rainfall will also leading to a sea level increasing. There will be also increasing temperatures leading to forest fire and burning areas. The sea level rise will most likely to affect the fish production, which is on the economic side, is decreasing the fish production and leading to a decrease overall GDP in Indonesia. So the livings got smaller, or the living lands got smaller, especially because the country is encircled by the sea. So decreasing coastal livelihoods and farming will slow down the country's development. On the political side, the flooding, which lead to many disasters like house clapping, injured population, and need of the government involvement, will put more effort on helping the flood situation, which means government has to spend more money and time on helping people rebuild, helping set up the relief stations. So on the culture side, waterborne disease, diarrhea, infection disease threatens Indonesia's biodiversity and the environment. So the low distribution on food production will lead to a poor nutrition, the death rate increasing, and the loss of Indonesia's population. On the social side, more Indonesia's population infrastructures and the agriculture lands are located around the coastal area. So the loss of agriculture land because sea level rise affect the low coastal areas. But there are also the good side, like the opportunities, the adaptation plan that government gave to help the Indonesia people, like like the reduction deforestation by planting more trees in Indonesia, like the adaptation plan, government help, sustainable fisheries to development um, government help sustainable fishermen to development includes encourage the encourage the growth of agriculture production to lighten the pressure on the marine fishermen. Knowledge management will and the planning, the financing, capacity buildings, monitoring, the evaluations will help the reconstruction of the urban area, the coastal and the small island. So also fix the health issue and settlement of those coastal and small island people, reconstruct the the infrastructure work on food safety and energy independencies. So the economy before industrialization in Indonesia. The political was not stable before the industrialization in Indonesia. In 1960s, Indonesia promoted agricultural self-sufficiency, and Indonesia is a developing country. It was desperately poor and with only few prospects of growth due to an increased enemy force to their foreign investment. So on the natural resource side, in 1980s, oil price was falling, so the government started to focus more on manufacturing export than oil export to also save the natural resource. Economy had a huge change. It was weighted toward the agriculture and relatively stable inflation. Export of gas was rising strongly after 1990s. International trade GDP from 1970 to 2000, it went up from 30% to a total GDP of 60%. Um, so the GDP after inflation, as you can see from the graph, after after the 1980 industrialization in Indonesia, the culture's GDP is starting to rapidly increasing. We can know the overall economy start to getting better and better. So we will say industrialization speed up Indonesia's economy development. So the urbanization and deforestation up to 1966, 75% of Indonesia territory was still covered by green. The forest sector became the second highest contributor of foreign exchange in Indonesia economy. The amount of the forest trade was right below the oil and gas. The average deforestation rate per year estimated from 1982 to 1993 reached to about 2.4 million. For the forest degradation to be reduced at the degree level, the effective forest management is decisive. And in 1970s, the growth pressure, in fact, urbanization led to the rapid movement in industrialization. So the fossil fuel burning. In 1965, fuel subsidies alone observed 20% of the total revenue in Indonesia. From 1975 to 2008, the fossil fuel energy consumption percentage was rapidly increasing. The fossil fuel energy consumption in Indonesia was about 65.53 in 2010. It was the highest value in the past 39 years. So fossil fuel CO2 emission in 2008 with 11 million metric tons of carbons. Indonesia rank is like Indonesia's ranking is the top 15 in the world. Indonesia's attention to reform fossil fuel subsidies. So as you can see from the fossil fuel burning graph, as we see from the CO2 emission graph for Indonesia on the left side, from 1950 to 1960, it was at a good range. Then from 1970 to 2010, it has been constant increasing. Overall, it went up almost a zero point 0.5 tons of carbon since 1995. So the vulnerabilities of climate change in Indonesia. Um, to reduce it can increase the overall education and technical skills to help increase the income level. The global climate change impact on Indonesia economy, the price instability hits poor farmers really hard because most of them spend more than 50% of the household income on food purchase. The climate change means overfishing rate will go down, but this would highly affect to the fishermen. Also, the low production of fish will bring inconvenience to the people in Indonesia because they depend on fish a lot. The poor community that live on the coastal and those dependent on agriculture will greatly be affected by sea level rise, flood, and landslide. Children are at the stage of growth. So they are especially depends on the water and air quality, temperatures. So they are more likely to be affected by the climate change since it brings health concerns like diarrhea, waterborne disease. Women die in a greater number of disasters, but they are more dependent for their livelihood and natural resource that are threatened by the climate change in Indonesia. The indigenous people have to face to rebuild houses and loss of their personal value caused by flood. So, the UNFCCC. The full name for UNFCCC is the United Nations Framework Convention of Climate Change. Indonesia joined this program in 1992, June 5th. And Indonesia is the top 5 country that being affected most by the global climate change. So they are concerned a lot on the global warming and strongly support the UNFCCC program. Indonesia also adopted the Kyoto Protocol. So in September 2006, it was suggested Indonesia to holding the COP13 conference. It helped set up the course for international action. Also, on the domestic reform, the 13th conference was hosted in Bali, 2007. The purpose of the meeting was to start a continued discussion on climate change issue. So after that meeting, Indonesia became a leader to help address the economic cost and financial influence caused by climate change. There are some major instances of Indonesia on climate change as listed in the timeline. In 1998 July, Indonesia signed the Kyoto Protocol. It is an international agreement linked to the UNFCCC to build the emission reduction target. In 2004 July, Indonesia starts the ratification process for Kyoto Protocol. It was the first OPEC country to start. 2007 REDD Plus, addressing the climate change from the forest sector, reduce deforestation and forest degradation development. And in 2008 September, the global UNREDD was set up to help the tropical forest country. Indonesia is one of them. 2009, Indonesia's president proposed to reduce the GHG emission on the G20 meeting. 2010, Indonesia published the Climate Change Sectoral Roadmap in March. This act provides strategy guidance for climate change policies toward 9 sectors and covers a 30-year period. 2010 on the COP15, Indonesia was the first developing country that made a promise to reduce about 26% GHG emission by 2020. It was a big step. In 2011 June, for achieving the reduction GHG emission plan, Indonesia developed the Nation Action Plan. So, after all, I want to make some recommendations to Indonesia. First, help living residents by encourage volunteers to help rebuild, provide free or give discounts to vulnerable population on medical support, encourage the fishermen to find their jobs since sea level rise highly affect their livelihood. Help save the agricultural land, can set relief station take in the population that was influenced by global warming, continue the relationship with UNFCCC and Kyoto obviously, set target on the UNFCCC meeting, show support from Indonesia to other countries that are involved with UNFCCC, work more on food safety and security. Also can encourage tourists to plant trees. So the tourists, they can carve their names on the trees. So they can see it as a souvenir, and it also helps Indonesia to solve the deforestation problem at the same time. Reduce fossil fuel use because CO2 level will not decrease if fossil fuel energy consumptions keep on the high level. Support women and children in Indonesia that were influenced by the global warming. Support children child cares and help women find jobs. Take in the injured children and women in the relief station. But there are also the cost and benefit side on the recommendations I made. The cost side are reduce fossil fuel use means the economy will go downward and the GDP of Indonesia will also slowly decrease. And a need of a lot workers, money, and time. Also need person like doctors to involved with the setup of the relief station to take care of the injured people. It is hard to get enough volunteers to help the coast living rebuild their homes. There are a lot of lands that were destroyed by the sea level rise and flood. So rebuild agriculture lands means need to remove the coastal land to inner side of Indonesia because the sea level continue to increasing. There are not enough land can be used for agriculture in Indonesia in the inner side. And take actions on the food safety means a lot of food will be wasted and need agriculture to plant more food. Money is always a big thing. Government cannot use all of the money to support the global warming issue. Encourage tourists to plant trees and curb names. This could be a social concern, even though I think it is a really good idea, but because there will be group of people disagree with curb names. But there are also the benefit side on the recommendations. So fossil fuel reduction will help the country to save their natural resource. Child care and support women means help with the vulnerable population and the future of Indonesia. The growth of forest will give more animal homes, and obviously the weather condition and natural disaster will be the level of disaster will be lower if the forest uh, if there are more forest growth. Use volunteers group like can save money for government. They reduce the GHG emission level. Directly help reduce the temperature rising. Will provide more people work opportunities, help farmers in the food productions. So if food safety and security being set up, then will help reduce the EU population. That way help the relief station to be less stressful also, and being a part of the UNFCCC and Kyoto does not only help Indonesia, it will also help the whole world. So theory of justice. Indonesia is one of the top countries that influenced by the global warming. So after Indonesia joined the UNFCCC group, they come up with a target of lower CO2 emission. They are the pioneer to show the world that determination to call on other countries. As a developing country, Indonesia's government shows their full support by come up with many solutions like government adaptations that help sustainable fishermen development include encourage the growth of agriculture production, knowledge management, planning, and financing. Monitoring and evaluation help the reconstruction of urban area, coastal area, and small island. On same time, need a fix of the health issue. So the future of the vulnerable population. The relief station will help the indigenous population to recover and give them life support. Also, a short-term home for them. For women and children, help them find job, give children more care, sometimes solve or same time it will solve the food safety issue to reduce the probability of illness, help the population that live by the coastal to rebuild their home, lower the overall GHG emission level to slow down the global warming problem, to give Indonesia a better home to live.